Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Ben.
And today we have the man, the myth, the legend, my hero, my dad. Welcome, Hunt Adent.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is super cool. We've been talking about wanting to interview our dads. Obviously, the name of Good Dude, Good Dad, like we both would agree without even talking about it prior to. But like you guys as our dads are a huge reason of why we are the way we are, for good or bad. You know, obviously we, as a little boy, you want to be your dad. And so this is really cool. We get to do you first. He flew in from Reading today, so we had to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad has been my football coach. He has been my hockey coach. He's been my CrossFit partner. He's been my snowboarding partner, my motorcycle riding partner, taught me how to use tools, was a coach, and just such a massive part of my life. My friends in high school made a Hunt's My Hero Facebook page. I think it might have even been a MySpace page back in the day. I think it was MySpace. Hunt's My Hero MySpace page. You are, in my definition, the grittiest person I've ever met in my entire life. I learned grit from my dad. In fact, when I read the book Grit, that's all I could think of was you and your life and the way you lived it. But I'm so excited to have you on. I know I gave him I called him last night and told him I wasn't even going to tell him. I was just going to bring him here, but I called him last night to at least give him a little heads up. But I'm so happy to have you on.
Oh, thank you. Well, given the fact that I was given no choice in the matter.
We kind of kidnapped you and made you.
Yeah, you're going to be here. Guess what we're doing? And that's fine. It's cool, totally. Well, thank you. That's a great introduction. I could just clap it, say amen, and go leave, man. I feel so pumped up. Thank you.
Oh, man. I'm going to kind of kick it off for you. So usually we ask, like the guests to kind of tell us a little bit about themselves, a little background. But I think today, you want to check that real quick?
Yeah.
But I think today would be a better time to be able to ask from the perspective of like fatherhood and why. I don't know what that's doing.
I don't think it started recording.
No, it did. We're having some technical difficulties. It did, but then it stopped. I don't know why. Anyways,
looks good now.
Yeah. I think one of the cool perspectives would be as a dad, as the father to Jordan, a lot of our listeners have heard Jordan talk about how and why he is the way he is and what you have, what you mean to him. I think it'd be really cool for you to kind of touch on just some perspective of what it was like to raise a son. I mean, you have a daughter too, but specifically your son, and to kind of see where he's at now and what that means to you as a father.
Well, you know what? Debbie and I, my wife, we waited a little while to have kids. And so when it came time, when it was like, okay, let's, we'll do the kid thing. We were so excited about that. That was something we were really looking forward to. We were obviously, blessed with a healthy baby and everything like that. And I got a little man in the house, which is amazing. Right now I'm outranked by the ladies at the house, but it was great starting off with Jordan. It was fun because I remember going back to washing cars, and it was like, I've already washed the whole side of the car, and here comes Jordan with soap and suds, and he falls out of the back of the cab and hits his head on the tire, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But it was like, I was like thinking, you know what, we can either embrace this thing and let him do his thing and participate, or we can be like, no, don't do this, don't do that. Just let him figure it out. Mm-hmm. And we kind of let him, I think, probably through most of his life, try to let him figure it out and try to, overcome failure and things like that. And I realize that's kind of a big picture thing. But that was one of the things that, I felt was important to him because it was an issue I had to deal with when I was in my 20s, is how do you deal with failure when you haven't had failure up to that point? So I want him to experiment. I want him to feel what's going on. I want him to do the best that he can, and we can tweak it, and we can tune it, and we can make it go from there.
I love that. And this isn't kind of put you on the spot, but if you had to pick a couple characteristics that you really hoped when you were a new dad that you can instill in your children, if you had to pick a couple of them and to see which ones he has now, what would those be?
One of them would have to be, first of all, I think faith plays a strong part in that. And, bring your kid up in a way that he should go so that when he's older, doesn't depart from it. And they can, sometimes you move in and out of different phases with God and things like that. But, in the long run, you're stuck with it, right? So that's one thing. One of the other things is just perseverance. I remember you were a Marine. He did Young Marines when he was 8.
Yeah.
And it was like he went in the first day and he came home that night, and the next day he's like, "Oh, Dad, I got a stomach ache." And I go, "You gonna throw up?" "Yeah." "Okay. Throw up and then clean up because we got to get you to Young Marines." And it was like we made him finish.
Yeah.
Because we said, finish what you start. And I think that was an important thing. And the other thing is just don't be afraid to try new things and different things. I call him my Renaissance man because it doesn't matter what he does it great. And I think it's because we gave him the latitude to figure things out and do it and have like loose hands on the steering wheel, so to speak. And he just figured it out, and he's just done a great job. So proud of him.
That story of Young Marines was like, I want to go back to that because that was such a huge part of, like, that is one of my greatest memories as a kid. Like and one of my most vivid memories. So I was like 7 or 8? 8, right? Because you had to be 8 in order to start Young Marines. And I remember because my cousins went because they were in trouble. And I went the first day and I saw it, and I was always in love with all things military. So I was like, dude, I have to do this. I begged my parents, please let me do this. And my dad was like, are you sure? I was like, please. He's like, once you start, I'm going to make you finish. I was like, just please let me go. And I went to the first day and I hated it. Every second of it. And I was like, this is horrible. I was like, what? And so I remember my mom and my dad were taking me, and we were in the car, and I was like, Dad, I don't want to go. He's like, you said you're going to start and you're going to finish. You're going to finish. And I was like, I don't want to go. He's like, once you graduate, because they had like a little boot camp. He's like, once you graduate that, you can quit. And I remember I worked myself up so much that I literally puked like underneath our truck bed. I still remember that because I like puked. And like my mom was like, I think, Hunt, we should just take him home. And my dad went, Debbie, I love you, but no, like he's going. And my dad was like, clean yourself up, dust yourself off, you're going. And I ended up graduating top of my class for whatever it's worth for Young Marines,
Honor,
and
man.
That's cool.
I was 8, and but I was able to pull from that memory so many times as a kid, which sounds so silly, but that was such a when you're surrounded by kids that were doing that in their teenage years because they were in trouble, and you're only 8 years old and you're experiencing that same thing. It was a lot, and it's something that I still pull from today, where even as a dad, I'm like, I know that probably wasn't easy for him in the moment, and it definitely wasn't easy for my mom in the moment, but it was such a representation of father power, where my dad overrode my mom's decision and said, no, this is for, like, he needs to do this as a man. And dude, it was huge, like in my life, like to this day, it's still huge in my life.
Well, you know what? I've seen him at the park with Hudson, and he says, Hudson, you can do hard things. And he got that from going way back to that experience where it was like he just worked it out and he did it. And I see Hudson growing up great. You're doing a good job.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, that's the cool thing too, because we talk about this a lot on specifically on this show of like our kids, your kids are such sponges, and they're it's so easy and cheesy to say, but there's eyes always watching you. There's ears always listening. And whether you think it or not, as a parent or anyone around kids, you got to be like aware of that, because kids will emulate, they will listen, they will, for lack of better terms, idolize the people in their life. As young boys, it's their dad, right? Or it's the cool uncle or the G.I. Joe or whatever it is. But we talk about the power of just your actions, your words, and not only just saying things, but actually like living those things out.
Yeah.
And so, for you, Jordan, to be able to bring that back up from 8 years old till whatever you're 100 years now, like it's really easy for, us to be able to say that on a podcast out loud. But, you have father and son here telling the same story, and now you're seeing it in your grandson. And I think it's such a powerful tool if we use it correctly. And that's just in all aspects, right? Like as business owners, as husbands, as fathers, as Christian men, genuinely like putting your money where your mouth is and acting in a way and talking in a way that, glorifies one, the kingdom, but two, what you say you do. And that's just another true like testament to how powerful like actions are.
Yeah.
Like we put it on Instagram all the time, right? And people sometimes will be like, oh yeah, it's so easy for you guys to do that on Instagram. Like that was a 30-second clip. Like that's not real life. But you're hearing a real life story from an 8-year-old boy.
True.
And I think something I've noticed about Jordan too is he is very he actually just joked about this yesterday. I think it was yesterday. He said, I'm not naturally good at anything, so I always have to like work hard. Like I have to outwork. And I told him yesterday because I, for lack of better terms, am decently good at things without having to try. But some of my downfall in that is I know that. So I do sometimes put bare minimum effort because I know that, for lack of better terms, I'm going to probably be okay at it. And Jordan was like, well, dude, that's not fair because, if I had half of the, talent or skill of these other individuals with my work ethic, I would have been X, Y, and Z. But that's something I have noticed about him as well. And getting to work with you over the last year and a half as well is just like you have the grit and the determination, and you said perseverance, that you wanted him and your children to persevere. And I think you've done a great job at that because I've heard him numerous times talk about, getting it from you. And he shared, and you can share as much or as little as you want about this kind of stuff, but he shared a lot about kind of like his childhood and some of the moments that he vividly remembers, obviously actions, about kind of some of the hardships you guys have gone through. And I think as a Christian man, as a Christian father and husband, because I've gone through this numerous times in my life, and not even to the extent that you guys have gone through it, but feeling like you are nothing or like a failure because you can't provide, or you thought your life would be in a different place and it's not. So you as a man, you take that, right? Like you want to take that on the chin and be like, shoot, like what am I doing wrong? Why am I doing this? How am I doing this? Or you want to go the other route and be like, God, why me? Like I've been faithful, I've been diligent, I've been honoring you, but yet here I am. And he's talked about it a lot. So I would love to kind of hear, again, as much as you want or as little as you want, but the perspective as being the man in the house and going through some of the hardships you guys have gone through. Like, how were you able to push that aside in order to make sure you're still doing your best job at raising your kids?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump like from 8 to 18 real quickly.
Yeah,
and then we can come back, ping pong back and forth. Yeah. But anyway, when I did this with both my kids, but Jordan was the first. So when he turned 18, I said, "Hey, let's go out and get some breakfast." And he's like, "Am I in trouble?" I'm like, "No, I just want to have breakfast with you." And we sat down at the Pancake House, I think. And I'm like, I just want you to know that, you're turning 18, and because this didn't happen with me. And I said, I want you to understand that, we're moving into a different relationship right now. I said, you're an adult now, considered an adult. I mean, you can go out and die for your country. And so I go, but you need to go. I mean, that's what you're capable of doing. You maybe at 21 there are things you can't do, but one of those things is you can go out, you can you can be a firefighter like you were working on, or do lots of different things. But the point is that, like I said, you know what? We need you to just go out and do your best. Do your very best. I mean, you may not figure it all out the first time, but you will figure it out. if you want to come, and you know what, you're going to get a minimal amount of advice from us because we've trained you up the way you should go. We think we've done as good a job as we can as a dad, and so if you want advice, come to me for advice. Otherwise, I'm going to just pretty much be quiet, be supportive, and let you work it out and see what happens. And I'm very proud to say he's accomplished a lot of stuff in that, from 18 to where he is right now at 30. What, 33?
Yeah. Okay,
I'm glad I remember your birthday. but that was a very important thing. I ended up doing the same thing with my daughter, but with my son, it was a big deal for me because it's like, you're going to go out eventually. You're going to provide for a wife and a family, and you're gonna have to fill roles and do things. And we'll just see how well we've prepared you. Maybe we didn't do 100%, but we did the best we could, and you worked it out. And I'm proud of you for the way you've handled it and stuff like that. I thought that was a very important thing to do. That's why I did it with our daughter too as well. But I thought it was particularly important to him because when I took off to go be in the Air Force at 18, I didn't get the same. I mean, just a different lifestyle. Yeah. I mean, a different age and different parenting. But it was like I wanted him to know that it's like, you're on your own now. Stick to it. Do the things that you've learned. You stick to it. You persevere. You excel. You do you show compassion, and you do the things that you need to do to represent what your Savior's done for you, as well as what you need to contribute to humanity as a person.
I like that. That's good.
I remember that conversation really well. Yeah, because you just let me know, you're like, hey, this dynamic is going to change from father and son to more of like friends, And he's like, I want you to be able to have conversations with me that are tough, knowing that, yeah, I am your dad, but I'm going to be here for you, not here to correct you as much anymore. And we had one of those conversations, where I remember sitting down with him. I was in my 20s and I, messed up and I was coming to him and I remember I was just bawling, and I'm not a crier. Like I just don't, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with crying. I just don't cry. But I was bawling, and I just was like, I let you down. I failed. And the experience that I don't know why I was expecting your response to be negative. I was just, to be honest, you guys had done such a good job of raising me, and I had kind of stepped away from the Lord just because I was being dumb. And I was more just so sad that I let you guys down because I thought you guys had done, and it was like, my dumb decisions are reflecting poorly on your good parenting. And it was like, it was this moment where I was crying my eyes out. And I remember you were just like, hey, it's okay. I love you. Like, the decisions are already made. Let's just move on from them. And the way that you handled that situation, the way that you handled that conversation at 18, I've taken it into my own parenting, and it's in my catalog of how to react to my kids later on. Because like we talk about all the time, right? You were just saying it. We talk about how our parents affected us, and how we talk about parenting, and we talk about being a dad, but we're also very young parents. But this is just a testament to that. We're not like, I'm not saying I know what I'm talking about from personal experience of being the dad. I'm saying I know what I'm talking about from being the personal experience of being the son. So being the one that received that love, I now know how to give that love. I mean, you can throw that into fathering like the Father, right? Yeah. When you're the person that's on the receiving end of such love and compassion, you then know how to turn around and give that gift to somebody else. And I received that gift from you. So now I know that as a father, if at a time like that were ever to come, I know how to give that same love that you gave.
Yeah. No, I like that. I don't think I would have ever thought of the sitting them down at 18 type thing. But I mean, it's so real, right? Like you're now a man. Like you said, you can go and die for your country. You can't buy a beer, but you can go and die for your country.
Exactly.
But you are what is considered a legal adult. And with that, I like that. I think I'm going to steal that and put it in my catalog of,
I'm doing it.
When that time comes, like, and I think as raising boys, I have two boys, as I also have a daughter, but raising my two boys, it is different than how I'm raising my daughter. I'm raising my boys to be able to take care of someone like my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I'm raising my daughter in a way where she can take care of herself, but two, she knows how she should be taken care of. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so it's like that little difference there. But, obviously I'm a little softer when it comes to my daughter, but, raising boys to be men is a big deal.
Well, not only that, is having that conversation at 18, I think is so important to have with boys, because we'll realize it when we have our boys in their teenage years.
Yeah.
But I remember as a teenage boy wanting that manhood.
Yeah.
Like you crave it. Like that's such a big part of when you turn 13, you're just like, I'm ready to be a man. Mm-hmm. And then you're gearing up for that. When I'm 18, I'm a freaking man.
Yeah.
I'm a man.
Yeah. I'm gonna do what I want. Yeah.
I'm a man. And then so it's actually cool because I've been like reading a lot and listening to a lot of different speakers on these topics and how they're talking about, like most cultures have a way of initiating manhood. And there's some people now that are bringing that back and take their kids on trips or make them do a hike or make them do this gnarly workout. And for us, it was like, I had that actually. We had that conversation at 18 and I sat down at that table one way and I left that table a different way. And I knew that it would never be the same. Did we also have our moments back and forth where, you were like, hey, you're still in my household,
For sure.
Your girlfriend can't be here at night. Like, stay out of you guys can't be in the same rooms. That kind of thing. But it's like, at the same time, it was that, hey, I'm releasing you to go out and be your own man.
Yeah. It's powerful. I like that. I don't think my dad and I ever had that. I mean, and if we did, that's weird that I don't remember it. But I think for me, it was a little different. I think we had more of like that. It was more of a silent understanding of the second I signed my paperwork to join the Marine Corps, it was like this unspoken, like, oh, dude, you're a man. And so when you come home, you will respect my rules and my house, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. Like, you're going to respect it, just like a tenant would respect someone's house. Like, you're not going to go and throw a party at someone's house, right? Like, and not have some repercussions. So, my dad kind of expected the same from me. But yeah, the power of a father-son relationship, a father-daughter relationship, I don't think I would have ever fully understood it until we had kids. And I think I'm still trying to understand it every day. I see my kids do something that I never once told them to do, but they just watched it through those actions. And it's a constant and powerful reminder that, like, oh man, you have the ability to either raise these incredible human beings or you have the ability to really mess up these incredible human beings.
Yeah, true.
And I love that you did that. I'm going to take it. But I want to go back to you as a man of the house, as a Christian man, as a father, a husband, having to go through and endure the hardships that you went through while raising your kids. Like I don't, the times in my life in the last few years where I have felt that, or I've had my back against the wall and I didn't know, where my money was going to come from and how to feed my kids. I have a little bit of a weird thing of that because Jordan and I have talked about, like, from the outside looking in, everyone thought that, that I was this rich guy doing all these things because, we had 4 coffee shops, we had a restaurant, we had all these things in the public eye, quote unquote. But, they didn't see the countless days where my wife was asleep and me freaking out in our little tiny 400 square foot place. Like, how am I going to pay our bills? Like, what do I do? Like, she doesn't even know there was those nights that I was up, like, trying to, like, figure it out. And we didn't have kids yet. And so, again, like, just that feeling of being like, dude, like, what the heck? Like, how do I put my pride, my ego aside, my manhood aside? But how do I do this? How do I figure it out? I would love for you to kind of just talk on that.
Going through hardship like that is a difficult thing to do. And as you were saying, I mean, especially when you got kids, it's like Christmas, birthdays.
Yeah.
Vacations. Well, what's that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was because for us it was a serious 6-7 year tough situation where it was like, man, I'm working 5 jobs. You know, I get like 3 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
I remember because I was doing a class at a school, and I had a bunch of junior hires, and I think I dozed off for a moment in this classroom, and they go, "Oh, Mr. Adent, we got pictures of you, taking a nap or whatever," and it was like, well, you try living on 3 hours a night, and you'll see what it is. That's because I'm working so many jobs and doing so much. When I worked at Starbucks, the first day I showed up, the girl pulled a knife out and said, "Who are you?" And it was like, "Hey, Matt hired me. I'm legit. Look at my pants and my shirt. I'm Starbucks, right?" But to go through that stuff is, but we maintained. First of all, maintained our confidence in the Lord. Psalms 27 says, "I would have despaired unless I believed I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of living." And so I always had the mindset that is like, you know what, and all things work together for good. So if it hasn't worked out yet, it's going to, and you just stay at it, keep going. I would check in with Jordan and say, "How are you doing? I mean, are you okay? I mean, we're in a trailer, 27 by 8, and he's got the top bunk, she's got the bottom bunk, and it's like, how you doing? Are you doing okay? Yeah, I'm doing okay, or maybe it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we'll just keep moving forward. We'll just trust the Lord. We'll do the best that we can, and we will survive this, and we will get through it. And I'm happy to say, we've come out on the other end of that, and life is good right now. Life is really good. God's really good to me, and to us as a family. But we maintain that perspective that God is faithful, and we're going to do the very best that we can in everything, and try to be the best example that we can be.
Yeah.
Because when you're not around for so many hours out of the day, because your kids know that you're either coaching or working at the coffee shop or staying at doing inventory at Costco till 1 o'clock in the morning, that you're putting in the effort to provide for your family. And I remember days where we went in. And, at Thanksgiving time, nobody wanted their turkeys at Costco. And he was working at Costco with me at the same store. And we walked out, I think, with 7 turkeys that day. We had a turkey every week. That's what it was like. But God saw us through it. And, the kids, I think it built some resilience into them.
Yeah.
And I think that's good enough.
It is, but it is way easier to say what you just said than to put that into action.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You could sit there and preach to somebody all day long on trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord. Like, what did you do to trust in the Lord outside of that? I know for us believers, we trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
But to somebody that's a non-believer, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
Well, what, for me, I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't remember the exact circumstance, but I remember it was like, okay, I got out the shears and I shaved my head, cut my hair off all the way, and I said, I'm not growing my hair back until this gets fixed. And I actually was like, and you know what? I'll listen to worship music right now, or things that are uplifting, but I'm kind of taking a break from you, Lord. And I know that's probably not the best thing to say or the right thing to say.
It's the real thing to say. So this is the point of this podcast too is and I'm not saying this to cut you off. It's that it's so easy to say something, but the cool part that we've had about this podcast is that we've had people that have actually lived through stuff, and like our friend George on his podcast, he was just like, it freaking sucked. And he's like, I remember one thing about us when we were in that situation, and one thing that it's taught me is that no matter how bad it gets, unless for the majority of people, the next morning you're going to wake up and you're not dead. So you're like, okay, well, I thought it was all going to end tonight. It didn't end. I'm now awake the next day. Okay, how do we make it through this day?
Yeah.
And I remember at points when, and it's okay that you're saying that you took a break. I remember us all being mad at God. I remember us praying at church. I remember you guys giving the last $100 we had in our bank account because there was someone that was worse off than we were, which is hard to believe. And then we ended up having groceries show up somehow miraculously on the next day. Like there was so many, and maybe even some of it we've even blacked out just because it's almost like a.
You try to forget. Type
Well,
thing.
your body just. It's how we compartmentalize, and men are really good at compartmentalizing things, right? So, yeah, it's okay. The fact that you said like, it's not the right thing to say. It's okay to say that because that's how 99.99% of the people are going to react, if not worse than that. I remember there's times you're having heart palpitations and you would scratch your arm so bad that it would start bleeding because you were just so inside. There was just so much pressure on the inside. And I'm sorry if you didn't want me to share that, but I did.
Shingles too.
Yeah, it's shingles in your eye and like, but at the end of the day, somehow you always manage to. I don't even know if you always believed it, but you were like, God is good. And you said it in a way that it sounded like you believed it. And so it was like one of those things where now as a man looking back at it, Caitlin and I have been on some really, really tough times. And it's kind of funny that do I get nervous? Like, let's say tomorrow, like we just completely lost all forms of income, just completely gone, all of it. And being a business owner and all that kind of stuff, like I fully understand that that's actually a very possible thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Right. I was thinking about it last night. I was like, I can lose all forms of income tomorrow. And it's like, cool. I'll figure it out. And I learned that like grit, I'll just figure it out from you. And I don't know, I mean, you're kind of speaking on how you came about that. I know part of it's from, leaving the Air Force Academy and having that experience. But I know deep in my heart, I'm like, I've been there before. I've pulled that grittiness out of me before. So I'll figure it out and we'll be fine. And we'll make it through because when that whole end of the world started for us, you think that you're just going to, the next day, like, I don't know why, but just like subconsciously you think you're just going to die. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, well, I'm not dead. So I got to get to the next day. And then you feel like, I'm going to die. And then you wake up the next day, you're like, I'm not dead. And then you feel like, this is it. I'm going to die tomorrow. Tonight, this is it. The night I'm going to die. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, well, crap. These days just keep going. So I just can't give up. I have to find something. So, sorry, I didn't mean to take away from that. But yeah, how did you practically get to a point where you were trusting God through all this? And maybe there's times that you weren't, but you felt like, but you just kept telling yourself you were going to, and maybe it pulled it out of you. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I'm a real lover of the Book of Psalms, and David went through a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was over 17 years between when he was anointed to be king by Samuel and to the point where he got to be king. There were other things beyond that, but there were so many different things, and I, in Psalms, David's really honest with God. He's like, where are you? How long do I have to put up with this or deal with this? Maybe it was my bad decision. Maybe it was this or that or the other thing. But it's like I always felt like I could go to Psalms and I could see that, and I could say, well, he was my model for making it through. I mean, he was my model for making it through, and I really felt like that was an anchor for me. And even if it was just like, I've heard somebody say, one verse can change your life. And it was sometimes I would camp on one verse for 6 months, and that would going through this difficult time, that would be the only thing I would say that I would recite it in my head. I would say it out loud. I'm in the Costco parking lot hauling cars in 100 degrees, and I would just say it and I would do it and I would put a smile on my face and help people and lift the water for them and do the things for the little old ladies and stuff like that, and just do it believing that in the end this is going to work itself out. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, my head's not shaved anymore, right? Yeah. and I'm okay, but that was a big part of me coming through that season.
I remember we had this guy at our church not too long ago that was a guest speaker, and I'd love to have him on here. He did everything right. He was a pastor, a youth pastor, waited until marriage, had a beautiful family. I think we have like 6 kids or something like that. And on his 6th kid, his wife had basically a mental breakdown, and she ended up taking her own life, and left him with a newborn. And when he told the story, when he told the story at church, there was not a dry eye in the place, and I have a hard time always bringing it up whenever I bring it up, because I have referred to it a lot. I have a hard time. And he's like, in that moment, I just remember sitting there, and he's like, I've built my whole life on Christianity, and now I'm thinking it might be a lie. He's like, and I have 2 options. I can either abandon all hope and just say, forget you, God, or I can just double down. And he's like, and I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, what hope is there in not just doubling down? He's like, at least in doubling down, I have hope. He's like, in no doubling down, I had no hope. And so, and I think part of that reason that I started crying a lot when he said that is that it hit me in a different moment, because I kind of visualized you and Mom going through this scenario, being where you guys were at, and just kind of like having that conversation of, well, we can either just give up or we can double down. And you guys doubled down hard. And it was like, once you decide to double down, like once we decided, like as a family, we're like, hey, we're going to believe that God's going to get us through this. It was like, there was always a light at the end of the tunnel. Even when we couldn't see it, we knew it was there. Like there was times where I definitely felt like as a family, we just could not see it. But like we just knew it was there. And it was like, it'll eventually one day we'll see it. And it was cool because when you guys were able to get the house that you're moving into now, I was just like, how far they've come. And I that night I got teary-eyed with Caitlin, and I was just telling her, I was like, I'm just so happy that my parents are finally where they're at, because there's no more 2 deserving people than those 2. And it's been a wild ride, but we made it through.
And if you think about that too, to put that in perspective for people, that's about a 15-year window. So, people, and you just said it, I think you just said in Psalms that, David at one point is like 17 years. And I like referencing time once in a while, because myself included, we are so quick to sometimes want instant results, right? Or it's been 2 weeks and you're like, dang, I'm not seeing any change in my weight, or I'm not seeing any financial relief, but I've tithed for the last 3 years. And I think it's very important, again, to put your money where your mouth is. But as believers of Jesus Christ, we're not on our own timeline. Nothing is in our own time, and some things might not ever work out the way we want them to in our timeline or in our lifetime. And that's okay. And I think something that's really cool, Hunt, that you're sharing is, because this podcast was not intended to become a Christian platform, but lately it has been because of the guests we've had on it. And I'm 100% about that. If there's a listener out there that feels that, we're too churchy, then, sorry, man, move to the next one. But the fact of the matter is, you have gone through crazy things in life, and you were willing to stand on your faith and live it out. But there are hard times, 100%. Like, everyone has those stories. But I think that's something that's so powerful about what you're saying and what you're speaking and how you lived it. And through your son is a prime example of how you lived through your faith and by your faith. But it's very easy for people that have never had anything hard in their life to be the best version of a Christian, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, someone like a George we've talked about that with George, of like, hey, man, there's a lot of great people out there, believers, that have crap lives, but yet they still have their faith, and that makes them rich and strong and makes their life worth it. And I love hearing stories like yours, Jordan, because, again, it's easy for somebody, and there's nothing, again, I'm not digging at anybody that hasn't had to go through hardship. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to, give credit when credit is due. You were able to put your money where your mouth is. You were able to live your faith like you said you were living your faith, and you took roughly, give or take, 15 years to get to the place you're at now. It would have been so easy for you throughout that time frame to be like, wait, what the heck? I've been faithful. I did all these things. My son almost died from a stroke. My wife, yourself, like there's all these things that have happened. It'd be so easy for you to be like, oh, too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the average listener that might listen to this, whether you're a Christian or not, I don't want you to miss the fact that having faith in Jesus is not an easy life to live. It's actually very difficult. We have to constantly work at it. And it's something I've become so passionate. I've always obviously had my faith, but it's something I have personally become so passionate about lately, because without my faith in God and without knowing that I have eternal life through him, like what in the heck am I doing? Like what good is that for my kids? Like what good am I as a man, as a husband, a business owner, if I'm not living my life to actually honor and glorify God's kingdom? And again, whether you like it or not, like there's so many stories just on this small little podcast that we have already of people living their faith out like you. And I just think I have the utmost respect for that. I think it's amazing. I've obviously heard a lot more of the details because of Jordan. And I just think you're an incredible man. And I think that's really cool that you're sitting here now with your son and we're getting to like talk about it. And it's powerful. And I just want to say thank you. And I think that's incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And, I'm having a good time doing this. When Jordan said, I drafted you to do this, and and I'm like, I got off the phone. I said, okay, Lord, I hope there's something. Do I have enough life experience?
Oh, you have more than enough.
Yeah. Air Force Academy. You've had more close calls with death outside of the military than like anyone I've ever met, probably in my entire life. You've been married. How long have you, Mom, been married?
42 and a half.
42 and a half
Yeah,
years.
that's insane.
2 kids, lost everything, got it back. And then within the last 3 years, I've had a stroke. Mom's had a stroke. You had open heart surgery. This man had, he was literally getting ready to go in for, was it triple or quadruple bypass? I think it was quadruple, right?
Well, I went in for blood pressure.
Yeah, but I know, but how they did like
Triple bypass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's literally refuses to put a gown on and is doing push-ups against the windowsill, waiting for surgery. And every doctor that walks in goes, "Where the hell's the patient?" And my dad's like, "Oh, I'm over here." They're like, No, that can't be you." And then now he's like, basically back CrossFitting 6 months after surgery. So, yeah, life. Come on, dude. Life experience. Like, you're ridiculous. But one last thing I'm going to ask you is if, being on the other side now and being a grandparent, what would the one if you had to give a younger dad one bit of advice, or maybe someone that has kids still in their home, one bit of advice, what would you give them?
Well, I feel like what we did with what I did with you as a dad worked pretty well. And part of that's the upbringing I got from my dad too.
Yeah.
My dad breathed a lot of good stuff into me, and I miss him dearly. He died too young, in my opinion. But you know what? Is spend as much time as you can with your kids, and do things. Because I told Debbie, I go, you know what? Because she's like, we don't need 5.5 acres, and I go, no, but the grandkids do. I go, they need to dig a pond. They need to pick up all the rocks on the ranch and put it in the creek.
Yeah.
We need to do these things and build things into them that are tangible. Time spent with them is there's no value. You can't put a price tag on spending time with your son or with your grandkids. Boy or girl.
Yeah.
Is you just it's can't, and you know what? Before you know it, if you didn't do it, you're like, I missed my window.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not going to miss my window. And so I told him, I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy a plane ticket. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to drive with you. So when you're taking up 2 grandkids this weekend to come up north, I can be there to change pants, hand out snacks, do whatever,
Yeah.
because I want to spend as much time as I can with them, and I think that's a good formula.
That's, and I get to brag because you're my dad. That is a definition of a good dude, good dad. Like my dad, and I've said it before on the podcast, is the definition of a good dude, good dad for me, because even as a grandfather, his first thought is to pouring into my kids. And that's how you leave a legacy. That's how you change generations, is that, and I know it's not easy for us Adents to take compliments, but that's how you impact your world around you, is that you focus on your kids and your kids' kids, and you try to continue even past when your kids leave the house, instill values in them, and then when they have kids, instill values in their kids. And I'm so blessed to have a dad like you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being like, I know it sounds ridiculous. Thank you for being my dad, but thank you for doing a bunch of the little things throughout my entire life to make me the man that I am. So thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to sit here with you, both you guys, and to know that our dads made a significant impact in their lives, and I know that for you, Ben, as well as Jordan, that it's paid off in the long run. So glad to be part of what you're doing now. Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. Please like, share, subscribe. We have merch on our website. We're going to put up the new shirts here soon. And anything else?
No, sir. Thank you
right.
for joining us.
Thanks again, gentlemen.
Be a good dude. Be a good dad.